All right, we'll start with the definition of the two words, domain and range. Domain, most of us realize domain is the x-axis, the x value, or the independent value. Range would be the y-axis, the y values, or the dependents. So just remember, range is y, domain is x. We'll start by looking at a few examples. And our first example will be a table. And a table goes with our definition. X will be the domain, y will be the range. And in a case like this, if we were asked what is the domain, what is the range, the domain would simply be a set of -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is a list them out. The range would also be the set of -1, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 12. Notice I put them in order. You don't have to write them in order, just sometimes it can be easy if you put them in numerical order. Our next example, we have some ordered pairs. Again, remember, in each ordered pair you have an x and a y value, so our domain here will be the set of 3, 4, 5, 10, -4, 0, -2, 6, and 9. Notice I had a 3 here and a 3 here, and I didn't list it twice. The range, 7, 9, 2, -1, 6, 0, 1, and 7, the last two, which we don't need, so we'll just leave it at that. So we have our domain and our range. We're just listing out the x and y values. Our next example will be an actual graph. Now this can be a little tricky, but we're going to do this kind of an easy way. Domain will be everything from here to here. So we'll say it's everything between -4 and 5. Now if you remember from the past, if you have a closed circle like this, that means it's equal to. If you have an open circle, that means it's not equal to. So this really means everything between -4 and 5. It includes -4, but does not include 5. Now, if we then look at the range will go from here, which is the very bottom point, to here, which is the very top point. So we'd say the range is everything between -2 and 3. And in this case, it includes both -2 and 3. Because even though you don't have a closed circle, you don't have an open circle. Here you do have a closed circle, here you have a line, but it means it touches that point. And for our last example, we have a mapping. A mapping is just a kind of a pictorial way of showing you how the domain and range go together. So if you've never seen one, it's like this. You have 1 goes with 0. So if you were to write that as an ordered pair, it would look like that. And 3 goes with -8. And 4 goes with 5. And 6 goes with 8. So, in this case, our domain will be 1, 3, 4, and 6, as you can see there. And our range will be these three numbers, -8, 0, and 5. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to write the domain and range. Now in the earlier one with a graph, we just wrote everything between -4 and 5, and that was fine because we're just trying to get the idea. But in math, we're going to need to write it actually technically. And the way we're going to do it is by using inequality notation. Now, for domain, we're always going to write this one from left to right. And from range, we're always going to look at it from bottom to top. In other words, when we write these, we're going to always go from small to large. In case you forget that, you can always remember small to large. So in this case, the domain is going to go from here at -7 to here at 8. So we'll just fill in the blanks here for the domain. Remember, the domain is the one with the x. Makes sense, it's x values. Now, in this case, we had -7, but -7 had the open circle. So remember, open circle gets a less than, closed circle gets a less than or equal to. So in this case, it's going to be -7 is less than x, and then 8 had the closed circle, so it's less than or equal to 8. So if you're going to write that, it would be -7 is less than x is less than or equal to 8. That would be the domain. The range is going to be from here at the bottom to here at the top. So again, the bottom one is -2, but it is included, so we're going to underline that. So -2 is less than or equal to y, and 5 at the top is not included. It's an open circle, so it's -2 is less than or equal to y is less than 5, and that would be your range. We're going to talk about another characteristic of graphs. The type of graph it is can be either discrete or continuous. We'll start with discrete because you probably already heard the word continuous before. In general terms, it means something that just goes on and on forever, has no breaks. Discrete means it has breaks. And that can be a real simple graph. It could be one made of points where there's obvious space in between. Now those graphs or those points can go on forever and ever and ever and ever, okay? But it's still discrete because there are breaks in everything. So like you see a break in here, and you see a break, and you see a break where there are x values or there are x and y values that are not included, that there are no values. It can also be one like this, where you've got obvious breaks. Okay, that would be a discrete graph because in there, in these spaces here, there are no values. Next, we'll talk about a continuous graph, which looks just like it sounds. There are no breaks. It continues forever. Now, that actually has a couple different meanings. A continuous graph can look like this, where it obviously goes on forever and ever. It's going to continue going to the right, it's going to continue going to the left, no breaks in it at all. But that's not the only type of continuous graph. This graph, this figure, could also be a continuous graph because from the point where you start here to the point where you finish here, there are no breaks. So it is continuous from here to here. Therefore, that's considered a continuous graph. Anytime you start having breaks, like the one before, this one is discrete because there are breaks between everything. But if it just went like this, that's continuous. There are no breaks from beginning to end. The last thing I want you to do every time you watch one of these videos is stop right towards the end or afterwards and to take just a second to think about what questions that you have. You may not have a whole lot, you may not have anything very deep, but usually you're going to have one question, something that you want to make sure that you get answered the next day in class. Go ahead and write that down now and keep it handy so when you come to class, you're ready to ask some questions.